right, here we go. The making of the arms. Thetis, immortal mother of Achilles, the sea nymph, went to the house of Hephaestus, the god of all those who worked in gold and silver and iron. She found him busy at his work making cauldrons for the palace of the gods on Mount Olympus. These cauldrons had golden wheels beneath them, with which they could move on their own power into the chambers of the palace and back out again as the gods willed. When I don't know how to say her name, Hephaestus, heard that Thetis wished to see him, he smiled and said, "Truly, there could be no guest more welcome than Thetis. When my mother cast me out from her because I was lame, that's mean. It was Thetis and her sister who received me in their house under the sea. 9 years I dwelt with them, and hammered many a pretty trinket for them in a cave close by. Truly, I would give my life to serve Thetis." Then he put away his tools, washed himself, and came into the house. To Thetis he said, "Tell me all that's on your mind, for I will do all that you desire if only it can be done." Then Thetis told of her of how her son Achilles had been shamed by Agamemnon, and how his great anger and all that came to pass afterwards, and how Patroclus had been slain in battle, and how the arms were lost. Having told this, she said, "Hephaestus, I think that's how you say it. Make for my son Achilles, I pray for you, a shield and a helmet, and greaves for his legs, and a strong breastplate." Hephaestus answered, "I will make for him such arms as men will wonder at when they see them." And so he went to his forge and turned the bellows to the fire and bade them work, for they needed no hand to work them. And he put copper and tin and gold and silver into the fire to make them soft, and took the hammer in one hand and tongs in the other. First he made a shield, great and strong. On it he made an image of earth and the sun and the sea, with the sun and the moon and all the stars. Also he made images of two cities. In one city there was peace, and in the other city there was war. In the city of peace they led a bride to the house of her husband with music and dancing. But round about the city of war there was an army of besiegers, and on the wall stood men defending it. Also, the men in this same city had set an ambush by a river at a palace where the cattle came down to drink. And when the cattle came down, the men that laid an ambush rose up quickly and took them and slew the herdsmen. And the army of the besiegers heard the cry and rode on horses and came quickly to the river and fought with the men who had taken the cattle. Also, he made the image of one field in which men were plowing, and of another in which reapers reaped the corn. And behind the reapers came boys who gathered the corn in their arms and bound it to sheaves. At the top of the field stood the master, glad at heart because the harvest was good. He made too the image of a vineyard, and through the vineyard there was a path, and along the path went young men and maids bearing baskets of grapes. And in the midst stood a boy holding a harp of gold, who sang a pleasant song. And he made a herd of oxen going from the stalls to the pasture, and close by 2 lions had laid hold of a great bull and were devouring it, while the dogs stood far off and barked. He fit all of that onto a That's a lot. He made as well the image of a dance of men and maids. There's more. The men wore daggers of gold hanging from silver belts, and the maids wore gold crowns round their heads. And round about the shield he made the ocean like a great river. Also he made a strong breastplate and a great helmet with a ridge of gold in which the plumes should be set, and greaves of tin for the legs. When he had finished all this work, he gave the armor to Thetis. She felt swift as a hawk to her son, and found him lying on the ground, weeping aloud, holding in his arms the body of Patroclus. Catching her son by the hand, the goddess said, "Come now, let us leave. It was the will of gods that he should die, but you must think about other things. Come and take this gift from Hepha, Hephaestus. I'm never going to get Greek names right. Armor of exceeding strength and beauty, such as no man has ever yet worn." As she spoke, she placed the armor at the feet of Achilles. It stood so brightly that it dazzled the eyes of the Myrmidons. Achilles took up the arms, and his eyes blazed with fire, and he rejoiced in his heart. "Mother," he said, "these indeed are such arms as only the gods could make. Gladly I will put them on for battle." All right, so that's what happened. They made him special armor after his friend died. Let's see. The vengeance of Achilles. Remember, Agamemnon is still made him look a fool. So Achilles gathered the Greeks for battle, and his armor flashed like fire. On the wide plain between the shore and the high walled city, the two armies gathered. Then Apollo spoke to Aeneas, the son of Aphrodite, and a Trojan nobleman, and among the Trojans second only to Hector in fame and valor. Stand up against Achilles, said the god to the Trojan prince. Drive straight at him with your spear, and do not fear his fierce words and looks. So a Aeneas came forth to meet Achilles, and Achilles said to him, "What do you mean by this? Do you think to slay me? Have the Trojans promised to make you their king if you prevail over me? You will not find an easy task." And Aeneas, why put an A next to an E? Son of Peleus, you will not frighten me with your words, for I also am the son of a goddess. Come, let us try who is better of the two. So he cast his spear, and it struck full on the shield of Achilles, and made so dreadful a sound that Achilles himself was shaken. But a shield made by a god could not be shattered by the spear of a mortal man. Indeed, it pierced the first and second layers, which were of bronze, but was stopped by the third, which was of a gold, and touched not the last part, not the last two layers made of tin. Now Achilles drew his spear. Easily it pierced the shield of the Trojan, and, though it did not wound him, it came so close that he was deadly frightened. Yet he did not flee, for when Achilles drew his sword and rushed at him, he took up a great stone from the ground to throw at him. The image of that is funny. Nevertheless, he would certainly have been slain were it not for the help of the gods. For it was decreed that Aeneas and his children after him should reign over Troy in the years to come. Therefore, Poseidon, upon order of Zeus, hid Aeneas in a cloud of fog, then caught him up and carried him away from the battle. He was saved. That's not a fair fight. But first he took Achilles' spear from the shield and laid it at the hero's feet. As the fog cleared, Achilles saw his spear and cried, "Here's a great wonder. My spear that I threw I see lying at my feet, but the man at whom I threw it I see not. Truly, this Aeneas must be dear to the gods." Yeah, because they saved him. Then he rushed into the battle, slaying right and left as the Trojans fled before Achilles. They came to the river Xanthus, and they leaped into it till it was full of horses and men. Achilles left his spear upon the bank and rushed into the water with only his sword. And the Trojans were like fishes in the sea when they flee from a dolphin. In rocks and shallows they hide themselves, but the great beasts devour them apace. Backing yet further back, Achilles drove the men of Troy before him, closer and closer to the city walls. That hour the Greeks would have taken Troy, but Apollo saved it by drawing Achilles away from the city. Wow. And the way in which he saved the city was this: he put courage into the heart of Agenor, a Trojan chief, who stood by the gate waiting for Achilles. And when Achilles came near, Agenor threw his spear and struck his leg beneath the knee. But the strong Greek turned aside the spear. Enraged, Achilles rushed to slay his attacker, but Apollo lifted Agenor, I think it's Agenor, from the ground and set him safely within the city walls. Then Apollo took the form of Agenor and fled before Achilles, and Achilles pursued him far from the walls of Troy. At last the god turned and spoke to him. "Why do you pursue me, swift-footed Achilles? Have you not yet discovered that I am a god, and all your fury is in vain? And now all the Trojans are safe within the city, and you are here, far out of the way, seeking to kill one who cannot die." Wow, Apollo is on it. In great wrath, Achilles answered him, "You have done me wrong in drawing me away from the city, great archer. Had I the power, you would pay dearly for this cheat." The Trojans were now safe in the city, refreshing themselves after all their toil. Hector alone remained outside the wall, standing in front of the gates of the city. From the high wall, King Priam spied Achilles rushing toward the city. He cried to Hector, "Oh, my son, come within the walls, for you are the hope of the city." Then Queen Hecuba cried to him, "Oh, Hector, my son, have pity. Come, I beseech you, inside the walls, and do not stand in battle against him." But Hector was resolved to await the coming of Achilles and meet him in battle. And as he waited, he thought, "It is better to meet in arms and see whether Zeus will give the victory to him or to me." Achilles approaching, brandishing his great spear, and the flashing of his arms was like fire or the sun when it rises. When he saw this, Hector trembled. His nerve failed him, and he turned to run. Fast he fled from the gates, and fast Achilles pursued him. Past the watchtower they ran, past the wild fig tree, along the wagon road which went about the walls. On they ran, one fleeing, the other pursuing. Thrice they ran around the city, but Apollo helped Hector, or he could not have held out against Achilles, who was swiftest of foot among the sons of men. As they sat in their palace on the top of Mount Olympus, the gods looked on, and Zeus said, "This is a piteous thing I see. My heart is grieved for Hector. See how the great Achilles is pursuing him? Come, let us discuss the matter. Shall we save him from death, or shall we let him fall by the spears of Achilles? Athena replied, what is it that you propose? Will you save a man that the fate appoint to die? Then Zeus said, so it must be, but it is a thing I hate. All this time Hector still fled, and Achilles still pursued. Then Athena flew down to Achilles and said, this is your day of glory. Stand here and take breath, and I will make Hector meet you. So Achilles stood leaning on his spear. Then Athena took the shape of one of Hector's brothers, uh, Deiphobus, and came near to him and said, my brother Achilles pressed you hard, but you come, we too will stand against him. Hector answered, O Deiphobus, I have always loved you, and now I love you still more, for you alone have come to my help, while the rest remain within the walls. Then Hector turned to Achilles and cried out, 3 times have you pursued me around the walls, and I dare not stand against you. But now I fear you no more. Only let us take this covenant. If Zeus gives the victory to me today, I will take your arms, but return your body to the Greeks. Promise, therefore, to do the same with me. Achilles frowned and said, Hector, do not speak to me of covenants. Men and lions make no promises to each other. Neither is there any agreement between wolves and sheep. Come, let us fight, that I may have vengeance for the blood of all my comrades whom you have slain, and especially for Patroclus. Then he threw his great spear, but Hector saw it coming and avoided it, crouching on the ground so that it flew above his head and fixed itself in the earth. But Athena snatched it up and gave it back to Achilles, though Hector did not see this. You have missed your aim, great Achilles, said Hector. You shall not drive your steel in my back, but here into my breast, if God's will it so. But now look out for my spear. Then Hector threw his long shafted spear. True aim he took, for the spear struck the very middle of Achilles' shield. It struck, but it did not pierce it, and bounced far away, for the shield was not made by the hand of man. Then Hector cried, Deiphobus, give me your spear. But Deiphobus was nowhere to be seen. Remember, he betrayed him. Hector stood dismayed. He knew that his end was near. Then he said to himself, the gods have brought my doom upon me. But if I must die, let me at least die doing such a deed as men will remember in the years to come. He drew his mighty sword and rushed to Achilles. But Achilles charged to meet him, his shield before his breast, his helmet bent forward as he ran. The gleam of his spear point was as the gleam of the evening star. Achilles well knew that one unprotected spot in the armor that Hector had taken from Patroclus. Into the spot where the neck joins the shoulder, he drove his spear, and Hector fell in the dust. Achilles drew his spear out of the body and stripped off the bloody armor. All the Greeks came about the dead man, marveling at his strength and beauty. Looking at one another, they said, surely this Hector is less dreadful now than in the day when he burned our ships into the fire. And there it is.